12 days before my wedding, my own mother sat across from the man I was about to marry, folded her hands on the table like she was chairing a board meeting, and said 7 words that were supposed to end everything. There is something he deserves to know. My father sat beside her, nodding slowly like he'd been rehearsing that nod for months, and I just sat there, hands flat on the table, heart slamming against my ribs so hard I was sure everyone in that dining room could feel it. I didn't scream, I didn't beg, I didn't cry. Because what my parents didn't know, what they couldn't have possibly prepared for, was that Caleb already knew. He had known for 8 months. And what they really didn't know was that the little girl they had spent 10 years erasing from my life was already in a car on the highway 40 minutes away, heading straight toward our rehearsal dinner. She was 8 years old. She had my cheekbones and her father's eyebrows. She had a gap-toothed smile and a laugh that sounded like something being unlocked. And she had absolutely no idea she was about to walk into the most important room of her life. That night, my parents came to burn my future to the ground. Instead, they handed me the match that finally set me free. If that opening just stopped your breath, good. Stay with me. This story is only getting bigger. Hit that like button right now and subscribe to Soulful Drama Stories. Drop your city and the time you're watching in the comments below. I read every single one. Now, let me take you all the way back to where this really started. My name is Celeste Monroe. I'm 32 years old. I teach English literature at a public high school in Nashville, Tennessee. I drive a silver Jeep with a cracked passenger mirror I keep saying I'll fix. I have a small apartment with too many books and not enough shelf space. I make really good cornbread. I laugh too loud in movie theaters. And 10 years ago, I became a mother for exactly 5 hours and 41 minutes. Before I get to that, you need to understand who I was before any of this happened. I grew up in Franklin, Tennessee. Big house, double staircase, the kind of neighborhood where everybody's lawn looks professionally maintained because it is professionally maintained. My father, Warren Monroe, owned a chain of regional pharmacy franchises. My mother, Claudette Monroe, was a woman who wore silk blouses to the grocery store and served on 3 different charity boards simultaneously, not because she was charitable, but because charity boards were where the right people saw you. We looked like the perfect Southern family. We were not a family at all. My parents operated on one currency: reputation. Everything in our home, every decision, every dinner conversation, every vacation, every friend I was allowed to have was filtered through one single question: what will people think? They were my most carefully managed investment. Honor roll, dance recital, student body vice president, proper dresses, proper friends, proper ambitions. But underneath all of that, underneath the performance they'd designed for me, there was a girl who stayed up past midnight reading novels she wasn't supposed to. A girl who wrote poetry in the margins of her textbooks. A girl who felt things too deeply and was constantly being told to feel them more quietly. My parents never understood that girl, so they just kept trying to sand her down. Then, the summer before my senior year of high school, I met someone who didn't try to sand her down. His name was Caleb James. He was 17, lanky, sharp-eyed, the kind of quiet that doesn't feel empty. He played piano by ear, made terrible puns, and read the same kind of books I hid under my mattress. We met at a community theater production where we were both doing set design because neither of us had the nerve to audition. He asked me to walk to the coffee shop down the block after the first rehearsal. I said yes. I didn't tell my parents about him for 2 months because I already knew. I already knew they would find something wrong with him. They always found something wrong with everyone who actually mattered to me. When my mother eventually found out, because she found out about everything, always, she sat me down in the kitchen and asked 3 questions in order. What does his father do? Where does his family go to church? Does he have plans for a real college? Caleb's father was a high school basketball coach. His mother was a seamstress who ran alterations out of their garage. They were kind, funny, loud in the best way, the kind of family that left the front door unlocked because someone was always coming over. My mother described them, after the one dinner she endured with them, as well-meaning but unrefined. That was her version of an insult wrapped in a compliment. Despite everything my parents did to slow us down, the curfews, the monitored calls, the carefully staged family conversations, Caleb and I stayed together through senior year. He went to Belmont University for music business. I went to Vanderbilt for English, 20 minutes apart. My parents exhaled. They thought the distance was finally doing what they couldn't. It wasn't, because by October of my freshman year, I was already pregnant, and I didn't know it yet. I didn't know it yet, but that discovery was going to become the weapon my parents used against me for the next decade. I was 18 years old, sitting on the floor of my dorm bathroom at midnight, staring at a plastic test. 2 lines. I remember the exact feeling, like the floor tilted 3 inches to the left and never quite tilted back. My first instinct was to call Caleb. I picked up my phone, I put it back down, I picked it up again. And then, and this is the decision I will carry with me forever, I called my mother instead. I don't know why. Fear, maybe. Some desperate, broken part of me still believing that she would show up for me the way mothers are supposed to, that this would be the moment she chose me over her image. She answered on the second ring. I told her. There was a silence on the other end that lasted so long, I thought the call had dropped. Then she said quietly and carefully, "Come home this weekend." That's it. No, are you okay? No, I love you. No, we'll figure this out together. Just come home. I came home. Saturday morning, my parents sat me down at the formal dining room table, the one we only ever used for guests, and I knew then that I was not their daughter in this conversation. I was a problem being managed. My mother spoke first. There are 2 options, she said, termination or adoption. Those are the choices. I said, what about keeping the baby? My father didn't even look up. That is not a choice available to you. Not a discussion, not a question. A verdict, handed down, gavel struck. I said I wanted to tell Caleb that it was his baby, that he deserved to know. My mother's voice dropped into that register, the one she reserved when she had already decided and was simply waiting for you to catch up. If you contact Caleb James, we will pull your tuition, your housing, your car, your phone plan, everything. You will have nothing, and you will figure out how to raise this child on nothing. Is that what you want? I was 18 years old. I had $63 in my checking account. I said nothing. What happened next was the most sophisticated destruction of a person's life I have ever witnessed, and it was done by 2 people who called it love. They pulled me out of Vanderbilt for a medical leave, moved me back home, told people I was struggling with stress-related health issues, which, to be fair, was the only true sentence they told anyone during that entire period. They contacted an adoption attorney within 10 days. They chose the agency. They chose the family profiles. They presented me with papers and told me where to sign. And Caleb, my mother used my student email account to send him a breakup message. I found this out later. At the time, I only knew that I'd lost him. My mother told me he had responded once and gone quiet. She said he hadn't fought for me. She said boys like that never do. I believed her. I was in a house with no exits and no allies, and I believed everything she told me. He hadn't gone quiet. He had been devastated. But I wouldn't know that for 10 years. What my mother did next, the thing she did that I still can't fully forgive, I'm going to tell you right now. But first, I need you to stay with me. Subscribe to Soulful Drama Stories if you haven't already, because what's coming next, the moment that changed everything, you do not want to miss it. August 14th. A hospital in Franklin, Tennessee. Labor was 16 hours. My mother was in the room. She sat in the chair by the window the entire time, upright, composed, like she was waiting for a delayed flight. She was not there for me. She was there to make sure I didn't change my mind. At 7:23 in the morning, my daughter was born. 6 pounds, 14 ounces. Dark hair, damp against her forehead. The smallest, most perfect hands I have ever seen in my life. The nurse placed her on my chest, and I fell apart. Not loudly, not dramatically, quietly, completely, like something cracking open that was never meant to stay closed. She was so warm. She smelled like something I have no language for. Her fingers, those tiny, perfect fingers, wrapped around my pinky like a reflex, like trust that hadn't learned yet to be careful. My mother said from across the room, "Don't make this harder than it has to be." I ignored her for the first time in my life. For 5 hours and 41 minutes, I held my daughter. I counted her fingers, her toes. I memorized the precise curve of her ear. I noticed a small birthmark on the inside of her left wrist, pale, oval, no bigger than a thumbnail. I talked to her. I told her I was sorry. I told her she was so wanted, more wanted than the next several hours were going to show her. I told her something I didn't know if I could keep. I will find you someday. I promise you, I will find you. Then the caseworker came in. The papers were already on the tray table. My mother stood up from her chair by the window. I asked for more time. The caseworker said she understood. My mother said, in front of the caseworker, in front of my daughter still in my arms, "Celeste, this is the right thing. You know this is the right thing." The caseworker nodded, and I signed. They took my daughter out of my arms. She was gone in under 2 minutes. I never knew her name. The adoptive family would choose that. I didn't know their names. I didn't know what city they lived in. Closed adoption, no contact, no updates, nothing. My mother drove me home. She stopped at a gas station and bought herself a coffee. She asked if I wanted anything. I said no. I went to my childhood bedroom and I didn't come out for 11 days. When I finally did, my mother had rearranged the room I'd quietly been thinking of as a nursery. New furniture, fresh paint, a generic print of flowers on the wall where I'd packed up a single yellow onesie I'd bought at a consignment sale and then hidden under the bed. "Fresh start," she said. "Eyes forward, sweetheart." I nodded, and I learned the most devastating lesson of my life. Some people will never love you the way you need to be loved, not because they're incapable of love, but because their love has conditions, and the most important condition is that you never make them look bad. I spent the next several years surviving that lesson. I went back to school in January, not to Vanderbilt, too many memories. I transferred to Middle Tennessee State University, finished my English degree in 3 years, and graduated with a grade point average that surprised everyone, except me, because grief, it turns out, is an excellent motivator when you have nowhere else to put it. I made myself one promise. Every August 14th, I would take the day off. I would go somewhere quiet, a park bench, a lake shore, anywhere open, and I would spend the day being her mother, just in my mind, just in my heart. I bought birthday cards every year on August 14th, one for each year. I wrote in them, I sealed them, I stacked them in a green memory box in the back of my closet. I never sent them. I had no address to send them to, but I wrote them anyway, because she deserved to know, even if she never read a single word, that she was never, not once, not for a single August 14th, forgotten. I graduated in 2015, moved to Nashville, got a job at a public high school, Riverside Academy, 9th and 10th grade English, kids who needed stories the way some people need oxygen. I was good at it, really good, because I understood what it felt like to have your real self flattened by the people who were supposed to protect it. My parents called twice a month. I kept the conversations shallow. Fine, Good. Yes, the job is going well. No, nothing serious on the dating front. We talked around the biggest thing in our lives, the way you walk around a piece of furniture that's too heavy to move, carefully, every single time, never looking directly at it. Then, in the spring of 2022, my colleague Priya dragged me to a fundraiser for a youth literacy program. Converted venue downtown, exposed brick, local food, the kind of event where everyone is slightly too dressed up and slightly too earnest. I was standing near the back, reading a student essay that had been framed and hung on the wall. Someone stepped up beside me. "That one's the best one," he said. I looked over, and my body went completely, entirely still. Caleb James, 31 years old, taller than I remembered, quieter than I remembered in the way that people get quiet when they've done a lot of living. Same sharp eyes, same way of taking up space without demanding it. He looked at me. I watched his face move through 4 different emotions in 3 seconds. Celeste. I said his name back like it was made of glass. We stood there. Then he said, "You disappeared." And I said, "I know, there's a reason. Can we sit down?" That night, at a corner table, I told Caleb James the truth. All of it. The pregnancy, the parents, the fake breakup email, the adoption, the 5 hours and 41 minutes, all of it. He didn't speak for a long time. When he finally did, his voice was so careful it almost broke me. "So I have a daughter. Somewhere, yes." He looked at me. "And you've been carrying this alone for 9 years?" I nodded. He reached across the table and put his hand over mine. "Not anymore," he said. I didn't know it then, but that moment, right there, was the beginning of everything my parents had spent a decade trying to prevent. Caleb and I didn't rush. We started with coffee, then dinners, then phone calls that stretched past midnight like the old ones used to. We took 8 months before we called it official. 8 months to rebuild something that had been deliberately demolished. By January 2023, we were together, openly, fully, without apology. My parents found out in February. My mother called the same evening. "Caleb Janes, Celeste? After everything?" I said, "After everything you did, yes." She pivoted immediately, voice turning soft, layering on that warm, wounded tone she'd spent 40 years perfecting. "We were trying to protect you, sweetheart. You were so young. You weren't ready." I said, "You didn't give me the chance to be ready. You made the decision, and then you made sure I couldn't fight it." She sighed. I hung up. Meanwhile, Caleb, quietly, without telling me, had already started doing something in the background. He'd taken a home DNA ancestry test 4 months after we reconnected. He told me it was for health history. His grandfather had diabetes, he wanted the data. I didn't think much of it. But every morning he checked that app. Because DNA databases are living things, new people register every single day. 7 months after his test, on a Sunday morning in September 2023, his phone lit up at 6:45 a.m. New match, close family, possible child, female, age 9, Tennessee. He stared at that notification for over an hour before he called me. When I picked up, he didn't say hello. He said, "Celeste, I need you to sit down." I didn't know it then, but that phone call was the beginning of the end for everything my parents thought they had buried. What happened next? I could not have written this if I tried. Stay with me. This is where everything changes. Caleb was methodical, careful, precise in the way that people are when something matters so much they're terrified of breaking it. He reached out through the DNA platform, a single message to the account that managed the match. He introduced himself, he explained who he believed he might be, he asked only that the family respond if and when they were comfortable. No pressure, no demands, no timeline. He waited. 11 days later, a woman named Renata Osi responded. She and her husband, Marcus Osi, had adopted a little girl as a newborn in August 2014. They had been open with their daughter about her adoption since she was old enough to understand. They had registered with DNA services intentionally so that someday, when their daughter was ready, the door would be open. Their daughter's name was Imani. She was 9 years old. She loved drawing, competitive spelling bees, and any movie involving talking animals. She had her own strong opinions, delivered without hesitation. She had a birthmark on the inside of her left wrist. Renata wrote, Imani has been asking about her birth parents since she was 5. We've always told her we'd help her find answers when she was ready. I think she's been ready for a long time. We just needed someone on the other side to show up. I read that email 4 times. Then I sat on my kitchen floor and cried for an hour. Not sad crying, the other kind. The kind that comes when something that's been locked up far too long finally gets oxygen. Caleb handled the next steps. He connected with a family attorney who specialized in adoption reunions. The attorney reached out to the OCs formally, explained who we were, what our connection was, what we were hoping for. Not custody, not legal claims, just connection, just the chance for Imani to know where she came from. The OCs said yes before the attorney finished the email. We scheduled a first meeting for February 2024, a Saturday afternoon at the OC home in Memphis. A family therapist would be present. Everyone had agreed on the ground rules in advance. Let Imani lead. Don't overwhelm her. This is her story, too. The week before that meeting, I didn't sleep more than 3 hours a night. I kept thinking about the 5 hours and 41 minutes, about that birthmark on her wrist, about whether she'd look at me and feel nothing, about whether she'd be angry and whether I'd deserve it if she was. Every night that week, Caleb held my hand and said the same thing. Whatever she feels is valid. We'll show up for all of it. February 3rd, 2024. The OC home. Renata and Marcus brought Imani into the living room. She was small, bright dark eyes, a yellow cardigan. She walked in the way some kids walk into every room, like she'd already assessed it and decided she could handle whatever was in it. She looked at me, she looked at Caleb. She said, "So you're my biological parents?" Not a question. I said, "Yes." She tilted her head. "You look younger than I thought you'd be." Caleb almost laughed. He pressed his lips together. Imani looked at him. "You have the same eyebrows as me." He said, "Do I?" She pointed at his face, deadpan serious. "Right there, same shape, same everything." And Caleb, this grown man who had spent 9 years not knowing his daughter existed, absolutely lost his composure. Imani watched him, and then, slowly, she smiled. "It's okay. I cry sometimes too." She asked questions for 2 solid hours. Practical, precise, unsentimental questions. What do you do for work? What's my ancestry? Are there health things I should know about? Do you have other kids? And then, near the end, she went quiet. She looked at me. "Did you want to keep me?" Every word I'd rehearsed for that question evaporated. I just told her the truth. I wanted to keep you more than I have ever wanted anything in my entire life. But I was 18, I was scared, and the people who were supposed to protect me made a decision I didn't know how to fight. I have regretted not fighting harder every single day since. She was quiet. Then, "That's really sad." I said, "Yeah, it is." She thought about it for a moment. "But I have a really good family, so it kind of worked out." 9 years old, already wiser than every adult who made this mess. We visited Imani 5 more times over the next 2 months. A rhythm formed, gradual, careful, real. By March, she was comfortable enough to argue with Caleb about whether pineapple belongs on pizza. She said yes, he said no, she declared the debate over and ate her pizza. By April, she was texting me pictures of her spelling bee trophies. And through all of it, Caleb and I told my parents nothing. We needed time to build something solid before they discovered it. We didn't get as much time as we needed. March 2024. Caleb proposed on a Tuesday evening in the parking lot of Riverside Academy. He'd come to pick me up after a late parent meeting. He had sandwiches from the deli 3 blocks away. He'd eaten most of the chips before I even got outside. He handed me the bag. Then he got down on one knee in the school parking lot next to a recycling bin and a painted crosswalk in the golden hour light of a Tennessee March evening. The ring was a rose gold band with a small oval sapphire, my birthstone. He'd had it made by a local jeweler. He said, 9 years ago, someone decided our story for us. I'm not letting anyone decide the rest of it. Celeste Monroe, will you marry me? I said yes before he finished the sentence. The wedding was set for November, a renovated estate venue outside Nashville. Old stone walls, oak trees, candlelight. Simple, personal. Ours. My parents were invited. I almost didn't. I sat with that decision for 2 weeks. In the end, it was Caleb who made the call. If we exclude them now, they spend the rest of their lives as martyrs. Let them come. Let them see everything we've built. And if they can't handle it, let everyone in that room see exactly who they are. I understood what he meant. My mother, unfortunately, had already started her own move. Right here, right at this exact moment, is when my mother did something I still cannot fully explain. She had been watching, and she had a plan. 3 weeks before the wedding, my closest friend, a woman named Deja, who has known every secret of my life since our freshman year of college, called me on a Tuesday night. Celeste, your mother called me. My blood went cold. Deja continued. She was asking questions, how long you and Caleb have been together, whether Caleb knew everything about your past, whether she thought you'd told him the whole story. I said, she's building something. Deja said, she's not just building, she sounds like she's about to blow something up. 2 days later, my mother called me directly. We should have dinner before the wedding, Celeste. Just family. Clear the air before the big day. Same voice, same silk over steel. I said, fine, Saturday. I told Caleb that night. He didn't look surprised. He looked like a man who had been waiting for this exact move on a chessboard he'd been studying for months. He said, good, let them think they're setting the trap. Let us let them walk right into ours. He opened his laptop. He showed me what he'd already prepared. The DNA test results, the legal confirmation of paternity, the full attorney correspondence with the Osays, photographs from every visit with Imani, a complete timeline of the adoption. And then, one more document, a communication from the adoption agency to the Osay family, sent 9 years ago. It stated that I, the birth mother, had specifically requested no further contact, a clean break. Her words. I never said that. I never signed anything like it. Someone else had. Someone with access to my case file. Someone who had been sitting in that hospital room and was very motivated to make sure this chapter stayed permanently closed. Caleb had already sent rehearsal dinner invitations to his family, to our friends, to the Osay family, 3 weeks before the confrontation at my parents' house, before everything fell apart. My parents assumed they were walking into a dinner where they got to detonate a bomb. They had no idea a much larger one was already armed and waiting. Saturday dinner in Franklin, my mother's formal dining room, the same table where she had handed me 2 options when I was 18 and called it love. She'd made her good roast, cloth napkins, the china she only used for presentations. Caleb and I sat across from them. His hand found mine under the table before anyone spoke. My father set down his fork, looked at Caleb with the careful sorrow of a man who had practiced this in the mirror. There's something you should know about Celeste before this wedding takes place. Caleb said, all right. When Celeste was 18, she became pregnant. She gave the baby up for adoption. She has never disclosed this to you, and we believe you deserve the truth before you commit your life to her. A pause. Caleb said, very calmly, I know. My mother's eyes didn't move. You know? Celeste told me everything. I also happen to be the biological father of that child, which I suspect you both already knew and were hoping I didn't. Silence. My father recovered first. His voice sharpened. Even if that were true, And I have serious doubts given how Celeste was conducting herself at that time. I said, "Choose your next words very carefully, Dad." He kept his eyes on Caleb. "Even if you were the father, that adoption is legally closed. Final. There's nothing to find and nothing to go back to." Caleb said, "Actually, we found her 8 months ago." My mother stood up. Her chair scraped the hardwood. "You did what?" Caleb's voice stayed completely level. He opened his phone. The photographs. Imani at a spelling bee holding a first place ribbon. Imani showing us her drawing portfolio. Imani between me and Caleb, all three of us grinning like we'd won something enormous. Because we had. My mother's face went the color of old paper. "That child is not your responsibility," she said. Her voice was shaking now, the first time I had ever in my entire life heard her voice shake. "We were children. We made the only responsible choice. We protected this family." I said, "You didn't protect anyone. You controlled everyone. There's a difference." My father slammed his hand on the table. "You will not speak to us like this in our own home." I said, "Then we'll speak about it somewhere else." Caleb put his phone on the table, screen up. He pulled up the document, the adoption agency communication. He placed it where both of them could see it. "This," he said, "is a statement sent to the family who adopted our daughter. It says that Celeste, the birth mother, specifically requested no further contact, a clean break." Her words. He looked at them. "She never said that. Someone else did. Someone with access to her case information. Someone who needed that door permanently sealed." My parents said nothing. The silence was the loudest thing in the room. I looked at my mother. "You told them I didn't want her. You told the family who was raising my daughter that I wanted nothing to do with her. Imani has been asking about me since she was 5 years old. She spent years drawing pictures of her birth mother with no face because you made sure she'd never have one." My mother's jaw tightened. "We were protecting you." "Stop saying that," I said. "You were protecting your reputation, your image, your story about what kind of family the Monroes are. You have never protected me once in my life." She shifted. Her voice dropped into something colder, more calculated. She looked at Caleb. "If you marry her, you're marrying a woman who walked away from her own child, who let a baby be handed to strangers. Is that truly the woman you want?" Caleb looked at her for a long moment. Then he said, quietly and without hesitation, "Yes, absolutely. Because the woman you just described survived 18 years of being controlled, survived the worst thing a mother can go through, spent a decade writing birthday cards to a daughter she had no address for, and still became someone who loves without conditions. So yes, exactly that woman. Every single day." My mother's face crumpled for exactly 1 second. Then it reassembled. My father stood. "This dinner is over." I said, "So is your invitation." My mother snapped her head toward me. "You're uninviting your own parents from your wedding? I'm making sure that the first time my daughter is in a room with her biological grandmother, that grandmother is not someone who told the world that I didn't want her. You will regret this, Celeste." I said, "I've spent 10 years regretting things. None of my regrets are about you." We left. In the car, I sat with my hands in my lap and felt something moving through me. Not anger, not grief, something cleaner than both of those. Something that felt, for the first time in a decade, like oxygen. We thought that was the end of it. We thought we'd seen everything they had. We were wrong. They had one more move, and they were planning to make it in front of everyone. I want you to take a breath, because what happens next at that rehearsal dinner, I need you to be ready for it. Keep watching. This is what the whole story has been building toward. November 1st, the Magnolia Room at an event venue in downtown Nashville. 46 guests, warm lighting, long tables, autumn flowers, and people who actually loved us. The Osei family, Renata, Marcus, and Imani, were at a round table near the center. Imani was wearing a green velvet dress and her good sneakers. because she had a spelling bee practice that afternoon and refused to change the shoes. I loved her for it immediately. My parents were also there. I know what you're thinking. Here's why. Caleb had sent the rehearsal dinner invitations 4 weeks before the confrontation at the dinner table in Franklin, before everything collapsed. They had already confirmed, and Caleb made the decision, let them come. Let whatever was going to happen in public, because the only thing your parents have ever been able to successfully do is control the story in private. Public is different. They arrived at 7, my mother in her pearl earrings and a blazer, my father in a sport coat, scanning the room with the controlled composure of someone calculating their next move. I watched my mother's eyes find the Osei table, find Amani. I watched her face do something complicated that she shut down almost immediately. She leaned toward my father and whispered something. He put his hand on her arm. Dinner started. It was warm and real and joyful. Caleb's college roommate gave a toast that made everyone laugh. Deja gave one that made people reach for their napkins. The food was excellent. The room felt like something that had been earned. Then Caleb stood up. The room settled. Most of you know pieces of Celeste's story and mine. Tonight, I want to tell you the whole story, because everyone in this room deserves to know the woman I'm marrying, the real version, not the curated one. I felt my mother stiffen from 2 tables away. Caleb told it. The high school love story, the separation, the pregnancy neither of us knew about together, the adoption, the 9 years apart, the DNA match, finding Amani. The Osei family who had kept every door open. He told it the way a man tells the truth, without drama, without performance, without asking permission. When he got to the part about Renata and Marcus Osei, he gestured toward their table. They raised our daughter with so much love and so much openness that when we showed up as complete strangers, she walked into a room, sat down, and asked us questions for 2 hours without a single moment of fear. They did that. We will never stop being grateful. Renata pressed her hand to her heart. Then Caleb said, there's someone who wanted to say something tonight. He looked at Amani. She looked back at him with the easy confidence of a kid who has been thoroughly, completely, unconditionally loved. She stood up. She walked to the front of the room. She stood next to Caleb and looked out at 46 people she mostly didn't know. Hi, I'm Amani. Celeste and Caleb are my biological parents. I also have a really wonderful mom and dad over there. She pointed at the Oseis. So technically, I have 4 parents, which is more than most people, which I think is pretty good. The room laughed, warm, genuine, delighted. She looked at me. Celeste, I made you something. She held up a framed drawing. Glass, a simple wooden frame, clearly done with care. It was a family portrait. Me, Caleb, Renata, Marcus, and Amani in the center of all 4 of us, grinning her gap-toothed smile. She had labeled it in her careful 9-year-old handwriting, All My People. I was already crying before she finished holding it up. The applause started. And that is when my mother stood up. Her voice cut through the room like a blade. This is completely inappropriate. The applause stopped. This child should not be brought into this situation and used as a nobody asked you. That was Deja's aunt, seated 3 feet away, coffee cup still in hand, not even standing up. My mother turned, startled. I am Celeste's mother. I have every right to… To what? Deja said from across the room. She was on her feet now. To stand up at her rehearsal dinner and try to make her feel small again? No, you really don't. My mother's face went red. She turned toward the center of the room, toward the Osei table, toward Amani. This child does not belong in this family, and I will not pretend otherwise. The room went completely still. Amani looked at her. 9 years old, green velvet dress, her good sneakers. That's a really mean thing to say. My mother blinked. Imani continued with the devastating, unfiltered honesty of a child who has never been taught to shrink from the truth. Celeste told me that her parents made her give me up, and then told my other family that Celeste didn't want me. Is that you? Silence. My mother could not answer. Imani tilted her head slightly. That was a really sad thing to do to someone you love. Renata Osei stood up slowly. She looked at my parents across the room. I don't know you, she said, but I know what was communicated to our adoption agency 10 years ago. I know someone claimed to speak on Celeste's behalf and said she wanted no contact. We tried for years to leave a door open. We were told the door was permanently closed by Celeste's own request. She paused. Imani has been drawing pictures of her birth mother since she was 5 years old. She felt a hole because children always feel the truth, even when the adults around them have decided to bury it. You could have prevented 10 years of that. You chose not to. The room was absolutely silent. My father said, stiffly, "We did what we believed was right." A woman near the back, a colleague of Caleb's father who had known both our families for 20 years, said quietly, almost to herself, "Then you believed wrong." My mother looked around the room, looking for allies, looking for someone, anyone, on her side. There was no one. My father touched her arm. She shook him off. She looked at me, and for 1 second, one single small second, I saw something pass across her face that might have been shame. Then it closed, sealed back up. "You'll regret this, Celeste," she said. "No, I really won't." She picked up her purse. My father followed. They walked out of that room without another word. The door closed. Nobody moved for a moment. Then Imani turned to the room. "Are we still getting dessert? Because someone mentioned there was peach cobbler and I've been thinking about it for 20 minutes. And just like that, the room exhaled, and then laughed. And then the applause started. Real applause, on your feet applause, beginning with Deja, spreading to Renata, to Caleb's family, to every single person in that room. For a 9-year-old in spelling bee shoes who walked into the hardest room of her life and told the truth with more grace than all the adults who had created the mess. Imani looked around at the standing ovation with enormous eyes. She leaned toward me. "Is this what rehearsal dinners are usually like?" I said, "This one is." She grabbed my hand. It was the first time she'd reached for me on her own. I held on. "I need you to stay with me for just a little longer, because the wedding, what happens at the wedding, is everything this story has been building to." November 9th, the old stone estate outside Nashville. Oak trees, candlelight, cool autumn air that smelled like cedar and something just beginning. 114 guests. My parents were not among them. Imani was the junior bridesmaid. She wore a deep emerald dress that matched the sapphire in my ring, and she absolutely negotiated to keep her good sneakers. She made this argument to me with complete seriousness and a prepared list of reasons. We said yes, because she was right. She carried a small bouquet of yellow sunflowers, and she walked down the aisle ahead of me. When Caleb saw us, both of us, walking towards him together, he pressed his fist to his mouth. His best man put a hand on his shoulder. The ceremony was ours. The vows were ours. I said, "I spent 10 years being told my story was a mistake. You spent those same years without knowing the most important chapter of yours. We both lost time we cannot have back. But I promise you, every day from this one forward, I choose you. I choose the truth. I choose the family we are still becoming." Caleb said, "You are the bravest person I have ever known, not because nothing broke you, but because everything that tried didn't. I love who you are. I love who we're becoming. And I love that little girl out there in the good sneakers who has your courage and my stubbornness and better judgment than either of us." Imani, from the front row, "That's accurate." The whole room laughed through their tears. After the ceremony, we took photographs. My favorite is a candid. Caleb and I are looking at each other. Imani is between us, not looking at the camera. She's looking up at both of us with an expression I can only describe as settled, like she is somewhere she always knew existed. She just had to wait for everyone else to catch up. The reception ran long and loud and joyful. Imani danced with Caleb's father, her newly discovered grandfather, for an entire slow song. Halfway through, he was crying. She patted his arm with absolute authority and said, "It's fine. I'm a good dancer. Just follow me." He cried harder. Renata found me near the end of the night. She hugged me and didn't say anything for a moment. Then, we found each other. That's the only part that matters now. I said, "Thank you for keeping the door open." She said, "Imani kept it open. We just made sure not to lock it." My parents sent a letter 2 weeks after the wedding. Long, carefully worded, theological framing, parental grievance, generous use of the word love. Caleb read it first, then handed it to me without comment. I read it once, then I wrote back. Mine was 6 sentences. I said I understood they believed they had done the right thing. I said that belief doesn't make something right. I said that what they had taken from me, from Caleb and from Imani, 10 years of connection, 10 years of knowing each other, could not be returned by a letter. I said I was choosing peace, which meant I was choosing distance. I said they were not welcome in my life, my marriage, or my daughter's story. And then I said one last thing. If Imani ever wants to meet you, when she is old enough to decide that for herself, that will be her choice, not mine to make for her, and certainly not yours to manage. I signed it with my full name, Celeste James. I sent it certified mail. I haven't spoken to them since. Here is what my life looks like now. Caleb and I live in a house in Nashville with a guest room that is officially Imani's room, painted the specific shade of green she selected from 17 paint swatches with the seriousness of a professional interior designer. There are art supplies on the desk and a spelling trophy on the shelf, and a small chalkboard on the door where she writes a different word every visit because she is, as she puts it, expanding our vocabulary. Imani lives with the Oseis in Memphis, 2 hours away. That is her home, her roots, her primary family. But she is with us every other weekend. Tuesday evening video calls when she can't be there in person. All 6 of us, me, Caleb, Renata, Marcus, Imani, and our family therapist, Dr. Patton, in a monthly session, building the language and the trust to make this work for everyone. Imani's school emergency contact list has 4 names. Her birthday parties have 4 parents and twice as many presents. She told her class during a family heritage project that she has a home family and a bonus family. Her teacher emailed us all. She said it was the most honest and joyful thing a student had said all year. On August 14th of this year, Imani's 10th birthday, we were all together, both families, Renata's backyard in Memphis. Marcus burned the burgers. Renata made a birthday cake that looked nothing like the picture she'd found online, which Imani found deeply funny and completely acceptable. Caleb played piano on a portable keyboard, and Imani told him without any softening that he should probably stick to the music business side of things. He agreed. I brought the green memory box, 10 birthday cards, one for every year, sealed envelopes with her name on the front. I set it in front of her and explained what it was. She looked at the box, then at me, then back at the box. She opened the first one, the card I had written on August 14th, 2015, sitting alone in my apartment at midnight, writing to a daughter who had no idea I existed on her first birthday. She read it quietly. Her face went very still. Then she looked up at me. "You wrote me a card every year, even when you didn't know where I was?" Every single year. She sat with that for a long moment. Then she picked up the entire box, all 10 cards, carried it upstairs, and put it on her shelf at the Osei house, next to her spelling trophies. She told me on a Tuesday video call a few weeks later, "I'm gonna write you a card on your birthday too, so we're even." She did. It arrived in the mail in a lavender envelope. On the front, she had drawn a portrait of me, curly hair, big eyes, a wide smile, unmistakably me. Inside, in her big, loopy, confident handwriting, "Happy birthday, Celeste. I'm glad the DNA worked. You're one of my people. Love, Imani." I keep it on the mantle in our living room. People ask me sometimes if I regret not fighting harder when I was 18. Here is my honest answer. I was 18 years old. I was alone. I had $63 and 2 parents who were experts at making me feel like I had no options. I wasn't weak. I was isolated. There is a difference. And I needed years and therapy and Caleb and the Osays and Imani herself to fully understand that difference. What I don't regret is what happened when I finally had options and chose to use every single one of them. I don't regret the DNA test Caleb took on a quiet Sunday morning. I don't regret the careful months we spent building something solid before my parents could dismantle it. I don't regret the rehearsal dinner. Watching Imani stand in front of 46 people in her good sneakers and tell the truth with more grace than every adult in that room combined. I don't regret cutting off the people who spent a decade choosing their image over my life. And I don't regret a single birthday card, not one word of any of them. Because here is what my parents never understood: you cannot bury love. You can block it, redirect it, seal it under legal documents and closed records, and fake breakup emails and cloth napkin dinners designed to feel like mercy. But love finds the door. It always, always finds the door. And when it does, all the control in the world doesn't mean a thing. My name is Celeste James. I am 32 years old. I am a wife, a teacher, and a mother to a 10-year-old girl in good sneakers who walks into every room like she already knows she can handle it. And I have never, not once, been more completely myself. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. If any part of Celeste's story moved you, if the birthday cards or Imani's speech or that rehearsal dinner hit you somewhere real, please give this video a like right now and share it with someone who needs to hear it. If you're new here, welcome. Subscribe to Soulful Drama Stories. We tell powerful, emotional, real feeling stories every day. Turn on your notifications so you never miss one. Drop a comment right now and tell me, what part of this story hit you the hardest? Was it the birthday cards? Imani grabbing Celeste's hand? The moment she held up that drawing? I read every single comment, every one. And remember this: the family you deserve isn't always the one you were born into. Sometimes it's the one that a DNA test finds for you. Sometimes it's the one a 9-year-old girl builds out of 4 parents and a box of birthday cards. Until next time, take care of yourself. You matter. This is Soulful Drama Stories. We'll see you in the next one.